Comic books on Veve have become continuously more popular on the app since its release, and today I'm going to be giving you 4 comics that I believe you should be picking up and holding for the long run. They can make you incredible amounts of profit in the future, or just something to show off in the Veveverse. Let's get started. Welcome in everyone, my name is Andy and I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come and watch this video on the channel. Just before we get started, if you are enjoying the content and you want to see this grow, learning about crypto, NFTs and the finance space, then I'd love for you to be a part of this journey with me. Today we're talking comic books. Now I'm usually someone who is more into the market trends of the collectibles themselves, but once ComicsAndCrypto has the comic books involved in that, for sure I'm going to be talking about it. Honestly, an incredible site. I love the market trends and I sort of want to put myself into that area of talking more about the market trends and helping you pick up some deals here and there. And this is what leads me into learning more about the comics, what they are, and how to really take advantage of those opportunities, because there are some big opportunities with that. The other reason why comics are so undervalued right now, in such a good way for you to transition into Veve, is because a lot of people are not going to be putting in tens of thousands of pounds or dollars into Veve right away. They want something that's easy to get into, something that they can understand a little bit more from the physical world, and comic books are the way to do that. You can purchase a comic book from the drop for 7 gems or $7 and even get some of them on the secondary app for quite cheap. So this way, most people who are getting into it for the first time are maybe going to see what they can pick up in regards to the comics, what they can do in AR with it, reading the comics themselves, which gets them a little bit more hooked, and why comics are actually one of the best ways to discuss how you can make some great profit as well as have some of the most notable comics in the world. I'm going to be quoting from 3 different YouTubers today because they have way more information than I do and they are fantastic creators in the Veve space, so all of their links will be down below. This will be ComicsAndCrypto, SleepynComics and also TheComicWay. So 3 of them I would highly recommend going to check out. They're people that I look up to when it comes to this space, especially in the comic field, so be sure to go and check out their channels and their social medias. When the comics were first released on Veve, it was actually really interesting to see the pricing and what they'd done, because we hadn't really seen the number of editions that they were releasing when it came to that. You know, we had 48,000 editions released in the first place and 60,000 total for these comic books. Everyone believed they would sort of use the same pricing structure that the likes of the DeLorean made. Because when they first released the DeLorean, it was well under its buying price for a long time before it surpassed it. So when the comics were released, you could buy them for 7 gems, but a lot of them were selling for 2, 4, and 5 gems themselves for quite a while. People weren't valuing these very high, and even myself believed that these wouldn't be anything special. There's no point of really picking many of them up, but it didn't stop me from getting 11 on the drops. Still, I didn't actually believe that they were going to be that valuable, or didn't understand why. And this is because I've never been a comic book collector, I've never read a comic in my life apart from being on Veve now, and I didn't understand the market and what it actually was. The percentage of comic book collectors within the app at that time as well would have been significantly lower, because we're already taking our places in the NFT space, which real collectors in the physical world may have not even been a part of just yet. And then you're adding another layer onto that with comic book collectors in the physical world coming into the NFT space to collect comic books in the digital world. So it's quite a big shift that we would need to make, and why I believe we still have quite a small percentage of genuine physical collectors who are collecting the biggest things in the world when it comes to the physical stuff. And I've actually been talking with Sleepin and ComicsAndCrypto who have talked about this, and they don't believe that there's a high percentage of comic book collectors within the app just yet. So if this does shift, and if this narrative shifts a little bit, we may even see a pump in some of the best comic books that are out on Veve right now. I'm going to be using Sleepin and ComicsAndCrypto's spreadsheets that they've both made to come to a decision on this, showing you some of the prices, some of the things they've said about it, and what you should potentially be picking up with these 4 that I'm going to suggest. None of these are going to be in order, it's just what I'm going to put it as in the video. The first one we have is the amazing SpiderMan 1 comic. This was one of the originals released from Marvel, and actually is one of the highest valuing comic books in the world, with a record sale of about $262,000. Now, a lot of people do believe that this was the first appearance of Spider-Man, but it was actually in Amazing Fantasy 15, which was in 1962. So it is one of the first appearances that we did have of Peter Parker and Spider-Man himself. If we have a look at Sleepin and Crypto and Comics sort of spreadsheet that they've made for them, massive shout out to you two, by the way. Holy crap, the amount of work that you lot do. Amazing Spider-Man comes in 3rd of this area, and it's the first issue in the series. Now, this is the first time that we did see Spider-Man in comic book format on Veve, so that also might hold significance. With the total editions here being 60,000 of them, and we've also got some stuff here where it's the total physical editions on CD CGC consensus, which being 4,487. So that is a lot lower in the physical format, with the floor of the secret rare being about 9 grand in the physical world, obviously in highest grade, valuing in about $2.3 million, which is just, you know, a casual $2.3 million, not bad at all. From Comic and Cryptos, we can also see that it was in the Silver Age with 1956 to 1971 of the comic book series. And if we go over to SleepynComics, where he's rating them, again, it's in the A tier with Amazing Spider-Man 1, and notes on it being that Amazing Fantasy 15 was the first appearance, but it will probably be coming to Veve, and that's going to be the S tier. So this is an interesting one to see, an interesting one to pick up, and right now in the app, I believe it's going for about 54 gems or around that region for the common. If the MTL does come in this time, you might be able to get it for a little bit cheaper, but I honestly believe if you're someone who's going to hold it for the long run, then you've not really got that much of a problem paying that much right now to hold for that period of time. Second one I'm going to talk about today is Marvel Comics 1. Now this is believed to be the holy grail of comic books in Veve right now. There are some more in the physical world that have sold for more. We can look at Action Comics 1, which sold for $3.2 million, and as we said, Amazing Fantasy 15, which was Spider-Man's first appearance, selling for 1.1 million. So Marvel Comics 1 isn't the highest selling comic book ever, but it is up there with one of the best, being in the top 20 ever sold. If we go on to the record sale that we have here, we can see that it was $270,000, with a valuation being put on mint condition of 1.26 million for this comic book. And again, if we go into SleepynCrypto's spreadsheets, we can see that this is the FA of Human Torch. First Timely Comics later becomes Marvel Comics in the first issue of the series. Now in the physical world, there are only 63 editions on the CGC consensus, which is absolutely nuts, but because of how early this was actually released, this is the reason for that. We can see that this was released in the golden era as well, being a sort of holy grail in the eyes of crypto and comics, with 1934 to 1955, and Sleepin is staying the same, that the Marvel Comics is the only S tier we have so far on this site. And in the physical world, this is very old and a rare comic, perhaps less than 100 still exist. Of course, we can look at cryptos here with the 63 on the CGC, so there probably is less than 100 that are actually available in the physical world, and why it's rated as the #1 right now on the app. If you can pick just one of these up, that's a fantastic way to go about it, and I think it's something that is really interesting to look at if you're getting into the comic scene. Right now on the app, you can pick up the common for around 94 gems, and this will most likely be the first common comic to surpass 100. It's not managed to reach it just quite yet, but no doubt soon it definitely will be. There's hardly any editions left. I believe there's maybe 500 commons left on the market, and the secret rare is meant to be the holy grail of the secret rare comics so far, at least until some of the others that are higher up on the list have been released on Veve, which I think we will see in the future. The third one we're going to be covering here is Fantastic Four's #1, which released in 1961 and also has a record sale of $300,000 in the market, which again is absolutely insane that this is even the case, but this is the third one we're going to be covering. Now the fair market value of a comic at a 9.6 grading right now is looking at about $6.7 million. What? That is what you should be looking to pay if this is the case. Now again, we go on to the spreadsheets that we're seeing. The Fantastic Four comes in A tier for basically both of them, with Fantastic Four being #2 of all the comics released on Veve so far for crypto, and also in an A tier for Sleepin. So we can see that this is within the Fantastic Four, which we've already seen 60,000 editions were released again, and there are only around 2,607 that are physical editions on the CGC consensus. This was released in the Silver Age once more, and again a 6.7 million fair market value for a 9.6 grading on this is just insane. For the common in the market right now, you're looking to spend around 34 gems, which is actually quite low compared to the Amazing Spider-Man 1 in the Marvel's comics. So to me, this might actually be the best pickup that you could get right now, especially for this high end that has been released on Veve so far. And if it's something that you can pick up for being your first comic, I don't think you can go wrong with it. The final one to choose was actually quite a challenging one. I'd compare both spreadsheets, using them to my advantage, also looking at some things online to come to this consensus, and maybe getting a bit of a deal as well on your side when it comes to Veve if you are purchasing it. And this is actually going to be Fantastic Four #5. Fantastic Four #5 got a record sale of only 138,000. I say only like that's nothing, but compared to the other ones, there is obviously a significant jump, but there is a reason why I'm suggesting this one in particular. This was actually the first appearance of Dr. Doom, one of the main villains for the Fantastic Four, and someone I actually see being used a lot more in Marvel films in the near future. So if this is the case, we're going to see more screen time for someone like Dr. Doom, and also where this comic book value will go up as the years progress. If we have a look at what it's worth with its fair market value, a 9.6 grading would cost around $480,000, which does make it one of the highest selling if this is to be the case, and this sale does actually happen today. When we go into both of the spreadsheets, again, we see that Fantastic Four 5 is actually number 4 spot with Comics and Crypto with the FA, and there is only actually 30,000 editions of these, not 60,000 like the rest we have talked about before. We have around 1,911 on the Silver Age and is actually placed as a holy grail comic book within Comics and Crypto. If we go over to Sleeping, we can also see that Fantastic Four 5 is in the A tier with the first appearance of Dr. Doom and a major villain in the Marvel series. So this is something that I do believe is going to be extremely valuable moving forward and something that you could pick up here. Considering it has less editions than Marvel's one, Amazing Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, Fantastic Four 5's common price is only around 22 gems at the moment. So you are saving money on something that has 30,000 less total editions than all of these. Now granted, it hasn't made a record sale that is in the same scale as Fantastic Four, Amazing Spider-Man and Marvel's Comic 1, but that does not mean that that could not rise over the future and something that people are more sought after. So I do actually think that both of the Fantastic Fours are quite undervalued. Maybe it comes into the census of you're looking at Marvel's Comic 1 and then Amazing Spider-Man being a lot more popular than the Fantastic Four itself, but we've got to look at the collector side of things, the comic book collector side of things, and more to see where this line sort of meets. I know some of these comic books may have been obvious to someone who's been on the app for a while or someone who's done a little bit of research, but I know for me this was never the case before I started here. I didn't know anything about comic books. I didn't know which to buy or why. I bought it on because the cover looked cool. So if you're looking for someone to be a smarter investor, someone to push yourselves forward in that front, I'm hoping this video could help you do that and understand better why you should choose certain comics, what potentially have a better ROI, and what could be some of the most enjoyable ones to actually read and have going forward. If this is something you'd like to see more, be sure to let me know, because I'd love to do more research on the comics, especially as we get better market trends with it. I can analyze it a little bit further and potentially help you make some of the better investments for yourself. But what do you think about the comic books? Is it something you've been picking up right away, or are you staying away from them right now? I'd love to know it down in the comments. I know the video on the screen right now will be something you'll love to watch. Have a fantastic day.